Yeah, we've been real pleased with it. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, heard that there were quite a bit of people in line on Monday, but by Tuesday it was down to just a steady number of people. I've checked, and there's no more than 3 or 4 people in the bank at any one time, it seems. So if anybody is interested in picking up their money and they have not done so, this would be a good time to do it.
She stood over him, as she described it, for 5 to 10 minutes with the hammer cocked on the gun. He didn't move, he didn't say anything. Then she approached closer and fired the bullet into his chest. That, to us, is a case of premeditated homicide.
There's no question, but this woman was beaten, drugged by the hair. She's had everything done to her that you can do to a woman by a man. I think she's about 5'1" and 89 pounds, and he was 6'6" and 250.
Cool sounds on a hot summer day in an ice factory. Summer heat means the market for ice is at its peak. Workers bag it all day, every day, and well into the night. This is the only time of year anyone makes any money selling ice, so ice factory managers welcome the heavy workload.
Ice sells better in hot weather than it does in cold weather. It started out slow, but it's picking up. Probably 75 to 100% increase when it gets hot. People are getting out, going to the lake.
So with the dog days dragging on and thousands looking to stay cool, ice packers expect to load tons of 25-pound bags before the summer's over. But as one worker says, with demand so high, at least the ice won't melt before it's sold. Bob Donaldson, News 4.
More than 10 years after federal clean water regulations were passed, Oklahoma continues to use its rivers, creeks, and streams as a dumping ground for sewage and other waste. In the past year, as News 4 has learned, the continuing problem of sewage in our waterways has resulted in fish kills and other pollution incidents that officials are only beginning to address. And while it is a problem all over the state, here in Oklahoma County, the North Canadian River and many of its tributaries are prime examples of what health officials call the very serious problem of sewage not being handled properly.
The stream will not produce the fishery that it should. The stream will not adequately allow for recreational use. And the stream is a contaminated stream.
As communities grow, so does the amount of sewage and other waste that must be disposed of. But increasingly, the plants that are supposed to treat the sewage are unable to handle it. Many plants are old and have too little capacity. Health regulations say all sewage must be treated so that it doesn't pollute the environment. But violations of that are happening all too often. Some of what is deposited here is sewage that has received little or no treatment at all. When some plants become overloaded or have a mechanical problem, they simply bypass the treatment process, sending the sewage straight into the creeks and rivers. This stack of reports shows the number of bypass violations by Oklahoma City, Del City, and Midwest City in just the first 5 months of this year. It represents more than 750 million gallons of sewage that was not fully treated but sent to rivers and creeks. and the effect of millions of gallons of pollution on the Canadian and its tributaries is being felt.
Oh, we have fish kills all the time, yeah, all over the state. Sewage is not the only problem that we have, but some of the problems that we have had are related to sewage.
In the last year, as these Wildlife Department documents show, there have been several fish kills in the Oklahoma City area directly caused by untreated sewage being dumped into creeks and rivers. Bass, catfish, and other species have been the victims. Faced with increasing pressure to stop the pollution, two communities have begun to try and correct their problems. Here in Midwest City, officials are building a new $15 million plant that will increase capacity and keep the waters cleaner. Its completion is still 6 to 9 months away. In Oklahoma City, a 20 million gallon expansion has just been completed to the North Canadian treatment plant, which in turn should help cut down on the millions of gallons of sewage bypassed. But problems with leaking sewer lines remain, and it will take many years and millions of dollars to stop them from polluting the Canadian. Meanwhile, many city officials say they've begun to feel the pressure to build new plants and clean up the waterways.
I think the EPA gave an impetus that to do it in a more timely manner than what may have been done on our own. It would have probably been a longer range project than what we're undergoing now.
It's been an awful while. We're going to have a lot of sludge come up. Bad.
But reports show one city has not made progress. In 1984, the state health department charged this Del City treatment plant was polluting the Canadian River. And in June, when the city was 8 months late in building a new plant, the state filed suit to make them do it. The suit is still pending, and the old plant is still operating. Del City officials say they want clean water too, but they want to balance that against the cost to their taxpayers.
It's very difficult for any elected official to look his constituency in the eye without being able to convince them that they have explored all the alternatives that are available to resolve the problem.
And that may be the crux of the issue. How badly do we want clean rivers and thriving fish populations? And secondly, how much are we willing to pay for that privilege?
For months now, we've heard that Oklahoma has an anti-business image. Supposedly, high-tech industries have written off our state because of perceived escalating tax rates, declining educational system, and deteriorating highways. But a private finance study released today tells a different story.
Overall, the results of this study support a conclusion that the tax burden for manufacturing expansion in Oklahoma is among the lowest for manufacturing for all locations included in this study.
The report reveals that the cost of doing business in Oklahoma is much lower than many other states in our region. Out of the 9 states shown here, only 4, including Texas, have more favorable business climates. But Oklahoma beats Texas in the tax war by having a lower tax burden. The only weak spot in the entire report shows Oklahoma with the highest worker compensation cost.
I would interpret that this report is good news for Oklahoma. It's good news in that it shows that comparing us to our competitors, which is every state touching us, plus Louisiana and Mississippi, that we are better than the average.
Better than average is the line state officials say may help attract new industries to Oklahoma, with an independent study saying that the state is a good place to do business. Economic development leaders plan to circulate this report in boardrooms across the country, hoping that at least a few companies will get the message. At the state capitol, Stephanie Frederick, News 4.
Well, I don't really like the moon roof. They're too high. So Take a look at this placard.
Okay. Why don't you let me do this? Why don't you let me... All right. Excuse me just a minute.
The last time they had one of these strikes, it was not a hostile picket line. Lincoln Mercury was able to get some drivers to go in, cross the picket line, and still ship cars. And they're hoping they can do the same thing again. If we can do that, it's not going to be as hard on us as if it's going to be a hostile picket line. We don't know that yet.
Hadn't seen him around this block area at all? How about him?
For nearly 3 weeks, Oklahoma City police searched for 8-year-old Robert Wayne Seaton. Police originally figured Robert was a runaway. As the youth remained gone longer, police began to worry something might have happened to him.
Need to get in contact with that may have any knowledge about this house here.
Okay,
Authorities' worst fears were realized when some dogs dragged a decomposing body from beneath this vacant northwest Oklahoma City house. A dental comparison confirmed what detectives had dreaded. The decomposing body was that of little Robert Seaton.
The evidence that we found today was actually going under the house, and of course this was where we were directed mainly by the animals that were going in and out from under the house, which gave us an indication that possibly the other parts of the body or the grave could have been underneath the house.
Discovering what happened to Robert Seaton won't be easy. The state medical examiner says the body is so badly decomposed that he'll ask an anthropologist to determine the exact cause of death. Scott Wallace, News 4 Northwest Oklahoma City.
Right. You know how they always say don't touch the evidence and stuff like that at a crime scene. We tell them that, don't touch the bones. Let us come and do it. Or if you're going to do it, here's how you do it. Do it right.
The next time you go to your favorite ice cream shop, you'll probably be asked to try some gourmet ice cream. It's new, and it's predicted to be one of the hottest selling items next year. The gourmet ice cream is one of the many new foods being showcased at the Food-a-Rama going on at the Myriad.
We're having it to show new products, show new ideas, to show the customers. Our salesmen have very little time with their customers, and they're not able to demonstrate foods. They don't have enough time. So at this show here, they can come here and see all these shows. The foods are demonstrated, and they serve, and they actually taste them.
Smoky the marinated chicken?
Barbecue chicken fillets as well.
And what's this back
These
here?
are little
Good,
balls of
it's
fire,
good.
real.
If fried foods are not enough for your palate, try the fancy and fattening Cake Fantasia. the new Ultra line and fine desserts, or see what your favorite flounder and shark really look like before they're filleted. Restaurants, country clubs, and hotel owners are all here trying to learn what's new. Many of these items will be coming soon to a menu near you. At the Myriad, Stephanie Frederick, News 4.
T-A-L-L-E-Y on Cynthia. Walker 6 to Western. What's the name?
AT&T or any other long-distance company pays the local telephone companies to originate and complete long-distance calls, and those charges within the state of Oklahoma are much higher than they are on the interstate basis. In other words, the Oklahoma Corporation Commission has set those fees much higher than the FCC has.
The security guard that responded to the call was fairly new and was not armed. As that security guard entered the building, the suspect was in the process of leaving. One shot was fired, striking the security guard in the chest, and he was dead at the scene.
All is not well in Guthrie tonight. While the town may look peaceful, there is friction bubbling between some members of the police force and the city council. Last night, the council passed a policy making all emergency personnel live within an 11.5-mile radius of the city. That ruling is not sitting too well with some law enforcement members. At least 5 officers and the police chief live outside that boundary. But the city manager says the policy is necessary to protect the city.
If we had a major disaster or whatever, a person living 35, 40 miles away is on duty from the time they're called until they respond. So we're concerned with the safety of the employee, the safety of all the citizens, and those kinds of items. That's essentially why we came out with the policy.
This is a side effect of a political battle that's going on between the city of Guthrie and the police chief up there. I have been advised that the city is trying to get rid of Chief Tyndall, who's a fine chief, who lives also more than 11.5 miles, and that these guys are getting bowled over in the wake of this political fray.
Gasaway also says, according to a state statute, it is legal for city personnel to live wherever they want if the population is over 5,000. Gasaway is expected to file an injunction against the city in the morning and possibly a subsequent lawsuit. In Guthrie and Nigh, News 4.
Those things are so darn big, you know, once one of them go down, that's just about all of Midwest City right there. But it's just the deal is that, you know, when we buy these houses over here, we take under consideration that, you know, this is Tinker Field country, you know, Airforce country. And we take under consideration that, you know, these airplanes are going to be flying over.
When the Air Force A-7D smashed into this Midwest City home on Thursday, it was the first time in 25 years that an Oklahoma civilian was killed in an Air Force plane crash. Today, an Air Force investigation team began loading up pieces of the wreckage to take back to Tinker Air Force Base. There, a six-man board of officers from across the country will try to piece together the facts surrounding this crash. After the pilot ejected to safety, the A-7D cut a 200-yard path through thick brush before slamming into the house. Investigators won't have much to work with.
This morning, they marked most of the wreckage, and now, since they've got it marked and most of the important items have been recovered, they're taking them to Tinker Air Force Base, and they're going to store some, and they'll analyze the components that they think may have failed.
It will take 30 days before the investigation team can put their results on paper and submit that report to the proper authorities. But according to one Air Force spokesman, even if the exact cause of this fatal crash is determined, the general public will not be privy to that information. Unlike commercial or private crashes, the military routinely keeps crash investigation reports private. In Midwest City, Kurt Autry, News 4.
Oklahoma Job Service, Meridian office.
By 2 o'clock each afternoon, this office is one of the busiest places in town. The employment office is more than just a place for people to file for jobless benefits. Unemployed people come here looking for job placement. Even the employed use this office for career advancement.
Cecil Beasley.
Thousands of people utilize this office at Northwest 36 and Meridian each week, but now the facility may be closed. The State Employment Security Commission is trying to streamline operations and better utilize space at the other offices in town. But if this branch does close, residents in the immediate area will be inconvenienced.
I don't live too far from here, and my check that I get is not enough to cover gas to go to Edmond or some other town, or, you know. It's a long drive to Edmond from Bethany.
To drive from Rockwell to Edmond would be a whole lot of gas. We don't have jobs now, so it's kind of hard.
The director of the Employment Security Commission says as many as half of the Metro's employment offices could eventually be phased out. Nothing is carved in stone as of yet, but Bob Funston is weighing all the options.
The Meridian office is the one office that, for a variety of reasons, does not lend itself to a new configuration. We're going to handling claims in mass and those kinds of things. It's not really configured for mass operation. The parking has always been a problem at it if you try to increase the load and such. It's just a very difficult office.
None of the workers at this office will lose their jobs, and it's still undetermined how many offices will eventually be closed. One fact is certain. Bob Funston plans to make his department more efficient, and if it takes closing offices to do it, he will. In Northwest Oklahoma City, Kurt Autry, News 4.
Normally, we have a number of requests for students who would like to attend our school. And in order to expedite time, we like to start early and do the preliminary first.
Mr. Kittimer said they would bring a team to Oklahoma to look at a location. So when I said Hitachi's coming to Oklahoma to look at a location, I think that was misinterpreted as a commitment. And I never meant for it to be a commitment.
It would be a little premature to base any change, any drastic change in the way that we take care of babies based on one study alone. But that study does, of course, provoke interest in trying to determine ways that we can reduce any risk, whatever, to these babies. And it will take, of course, a little time yet to think about ways in reducing that risk.
She's 17 years old and pregnant for the third time. State Health Department records show there were more than 8,000 unintended pregnancies among Oklahoma teenagers last year. 138 of them occurred in girls 15 years of age or younger. Local physicians are calling it an epidemic.
The game plan is to get sex education into the school system. That's plan number one. To do this, we have to have public awareness of the problem. And to get public awareness, the only way we have is the media.
I intend to be president.
I intend to go back to school.
I intended to have a family, but not this soon.
The American Academy of Obstetricians and Gynecologists has allocated $100,000 for a national media campaign to address the problem. All three television networks have refused to air this public service announcement, saying it is a subject that should be handled only by news operations. Left undiscussed, this is the result: unintended pregnancy.
And no one's taught birth control. They're taught that you don't have sex, that intercourse is something saved for marriage. But teenagers are teenagers, they have the questions. And if you don't answer them, they're going to check it out for themselves.
Many physicians believe unless public consciousness is raised to the problem, the lack of information about birth control will continue, and the number of unintended pregnancies can only rise. A group of local health professionals will meet next week to formulate a game plan on how to tackle the problem in Oklahoma. Terry Cook, News 4.